What is the most memorable moment of your career?
Debut for national team.
The best goal you ever scored?
USL final, my first season as professional with Whitecaps.
Away here to Marcus Haber. What can the Rookie of the Year do? 2-on-2 soccer. He's got James on his right. Takes it to the left. The cutback. Haber. Goal! Vancouver has evened it.
Best atmosphere you've experienced?
Azteca, World Cup qualifying, 80,000 against Mexico.
That's mad.
Yeah, I was on the bench, didn't come on, but
Was it intimidating more than anything? Or?
Absolutely, yeah. It was a lot.
Who's the most gifted player you've played alongside?
Atiba Hutchinson with the national team. Couldn't get the ball off him. What a player.
Who is the toughest centre-back you've come up against?
Wes Morgan.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, but I played him against Jamaica, and this was when he was playing really well for, I think it would have been Leicester at the time. Absolute machine at the time.
Sure.
Couldn't win much in the air, and he was stronger than me. So, yeah.
Before Thailand, Cambodia was your first step into the Southeast Asian football world. So, how did that happen?
I'd been wanting to move to Southeast Asia or Asia in general to sort of explore that market and play for a few years before I did. But when COVID happened, it was kind of, the world was in a bit of a standstill. And it just so happened that a contact of mine, a guy I used to play with, he had played in Southeast Asia and sort of put my name out to a few people, and he just sort of called me out the blue and said, hey, are you still interested in potentially coming to play in Asia? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And he proposed to me this possibility in Cambodia. And then within, the next day I was on the phone with the coach. He was Irish. This was at Visaka. His name was Colin Curtis. And we just had a good conversation, and he sort of pitched the project to me and the place to live, which was Phnom Penh, and just sort of football in general. And I was kind of, all right, I knew it was a risk and just sort of jumped on board with it. And a few months after that, I was on a plane, and the rest is history.
And it was really successful for you there, wasn't it?
It went well, absolutely. Visaka was sort of my, thrown into the deep end, with Cambodian football, and that was sort of me sort of learning the culture, learning the style of football, and it went well. And then ended up at Swa Rain for 2 seasons, which is probably the best football that, in terms of as a team and personally, that I'd ever been involved in, and it ended really well. We won 2 trophies in my last season, so it couldn't really get much better than that. So I really enjoyed my time there.
One thing I find interesting about the Cambodian leagues, and maybe the Southeast Asian leagues in general, is that a player of the match wins like...
I know where you're going.
Yeah, they're sponsored by Panasonic. They win like a shower or something.
Yeah.
Right? And you won a lot of man of the match awards.
Yeah.
So like, how many showers you got?
I got a lot of shower heads and microwaves. Those are the 2 different...
What are you doing with them?
I used to sell them to my teammates. Yeah, it's a funny story. Our captain, I believe his parents owned a shop in the markets. So he would purchase all my Man of the Match awards at a very discounted. I was very generous to him. I gave him a discounted rate, and he would buy them in bulk and then resell them in the market within his family. So, and I did the same thing with the motorbikes I won as well. So, Player of the Month, they gave a bike, or Player of the Year, or...
I saw that at the training ground, they interviewed about it, and then you're just tearing around the pitch.
Yeah, they want you to drive it on the field.
Just tearing it about.
They're like, just have a rip. I'm like, all right, cool.
The first big club in England you signed for was West Brom.
Yeah.
So that must have been absolutely massive at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it was off the back of my first season in Vancouver, so...
And Vancouver were playing like the equivalent of like a second division in America, right?
It was called the USL back then. Yeah, it would have been the second division. So originally when I went to England, I trialed for every other team. I was at Leeds, Gillingham, Rotherham, and Darlington, I think. No one offered me any contracts, so I went back to Vancouver. Ended up signing for them to play in the USL. That was like my first season as a professional. So I would have been 20 years old. Had a good season, played a lot of games, probably more than I had expected to, and we did quite well. And yeah, off the back of that, I was able to be offered to play for West Brom. Went there on trial for about 5 days, and they offered me a contract in January.
So they scout you for that today?
Yeah, funny enough, I remember making a YouTube video of sort of all my highlights throughout the season, which I kind of have done my whole career, just because, you know, we're in a business where people need to see things. And yeah, like, it was a scenario where I had an agent approach me, and back then there wasn't Wisecout, there wasn't this sort of database of footage, so I had this footage of myself that was, you know, basically all the good things I had done that season, and that's kind of what they used to show West Brom, and they felt at the time I had sort of like the body type and playing style that would have, you know, worked well in England. So I think a lot of the reason why they signed me would have been because of the footage they were able to see of me.
That's mad, isn't it? Because in Southeast Asia it's really common. Players have to do this because you've got to hustle a little bit or whatever. But like I didn't expect that from like it would have been a championship club at the time.
Yeah,
to
I
be
mean,
scouting.
this was 2009, right? So this was before, you know, this was, you know, everything was accessible. Like now you can find any player on the planet and see his last 10, 15 games. Back then it wasn't as accessible, but it definitely helped. It played a role. So I trained with them for about 5 days, didn't even play a match, just training, and they signed me off the back of that.
So 5 English clubs, so which one did you enjoy the most, both as a player and as a place to live?
Probably Stevenage. That was sort of my first introduction to English football, playing regularly, and I was living in Watford, which is close to London, so I remember we had a super young squad, and we were all kind of like-minded at the time, and I had a lot of fun. The dressing room was excellent. We had a lot of good times. And then I also really liked my time at Crewe when I was living in Manchester, which is an amazing city as well, and that was probably, like, off the pitch the most fun I had. And I made some friends at Crewe that I'm still in touch with today. One of them's Greg Lee and one of them's Ben Nugent, so they're still guys I keep in touch with now.
Oh boy, Ben Nugent.
Yeah, good guy. Yeah, I'd say probably those 2 clubs in England were the ones where I had the most meaningful, you know, football and interaction, you know, and also being able to play in League One, which is a competitive league, and playing consistently was a good experience for sure.
And Scotland, how would you sum up your time there?
Yeah, Scotland's a bit more open with you know, extracurricular activity off the pitch. I remember when I first came there in like 2011, 2010, there's a drinking culture up there, and this has obviously shifted out of football now, but you know, it was part of the game. The culture in Scotland as well is very driven around football. I mean, obviously with the Old Firm and in that, the whole country was, you know, very centered around football, and as well the teams I played for, like St. Johnstone and Dundee, you know, they're not big market clubs, but you know, like I said, community feel, and sort of the whole city and community would take to the matches, and it was a massive deal. They love the football and their partying.
Your Canada career, so you debuted at 21. Did you appreciate it as much as at a time as you perhaps, when you look back now, you can feel the gravity of it a bit more?
Probably not, yeah. I think it's funny you say that. I think when you're going through it and you're just kind of on go, you don't really sit back and think, wow, like I made my debut for the national team, or you know, I've got 20 caps or whatever that is. My debut was against Ukraine, and you had guys on the pitch like Shevchenko and stuff. We were playing in Ukraine, and it's amazing to share the pitch with some world-class players of that nature. So yeah, looking back, I'm super honored to be able to represent my country 27 times. It's something I'm proud of, but yeah, in the moment you don't necessarily take it in, and because you're just always kind of focused on the next game or getting back to your club team or the next camp or something like that. So it's looking back, I appreciate it now for sure.